Hello, you guys, and welcome for the very first episode of Trojan Conquest Live. You asked for it, and here it is, our off-season show. You guys have been clamoring about it in our DMs all day, and we're now here to provide it for you. Our show has always been about you guys, the viewers, right? The Trojan family. So Rick and I are here to represent the Trojan family as alumni and season ticket holders. We've both been season ticket holders for decades. We bring about a combined 75 years of watching and attending USC football games together. We've appreciated the fact that Mark Rogers gave us a voice last season to do a postseason show with the amazing Tony Altimore. And we thought we'd just have an off-season show because you guys have asked for it. So we're really looking for you diehard Trojans to do something with us in the off-season. We're excited to provide you with this show. This show is going to be a little bit different. It's going to have a tailgate atmosphere where all of us Trojans get together. We can talk about storylines and hot topics, things that have been on everyone's minds or on the tip of people's tongues. But a big reminder, this show is about you guys. So we welcome your comments. We welcome your questions and suggestions. And we're going to do our best to get to all of them throughout the show. So go ahead and put them in there. We will keep track of them. And we will try to get to them at the end of the show. So, Rick?
Hey, great to be back with you, Tim. Everybody that's out there, we appreciate your patience. Tim, relax, man.
Oh, I'm having a great time.
Our first episode, right now. We had some technical difficulties, and Tim's a little bit high strung right now. But Tim, follow me. Breathe in, relax. We got to work it out.
Got this, Rick. You're the one who's really nervous, so we're good.
We're ready to roll. We're ready to roll. Like Tim mentioned, hey, thank you guys for joining us. We had again, thanks to Mark Rogers for having us do the USC postgame show. We've had a lot of response about, hey, when are you guys going to do? You should do an off-season show. So here we are. We're going to start, covering this off-season with a show a week. Next time, hopefully right at 5 o'clock. But we appreciate your patience. And what we're going to do is we're going to have some different segments. And like Tim had mentioned, it's kind of like a tailgate. When you go to a tailgate, everybody's anticipating the game. They have their opinions, what's happening with the program. We're gonna bring that to you. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, enjoy our discussion about USC football. What Tim and I are going to bring to you is our passion. Like Tim had mentioned, we're both alumni, season ticket holders. We're invested in the program. And we have a good working knowledge, a great working knowledge of the past, the present, and what our opinion is, what's going to happen in the future. So with that, let's rock and roll. Tim, are you chilling? Are you feeling better?
Well, I'm just making sure we have all of our graphics ready. We should be all right.
Okay. Well, cool, man. Then why don't we start the tailgate section? And Tim, I think you're going to start off with a question.
Yeah, so when you're at tailgates, a lot of things are being bounced around and stuff, and a lot of times in sports, it comes down to numbers, right? So I'm thinking about a number here, and what would be the first thing to pop into your mind if I told you the number USC, the Trojan number 5?
Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush, yeah. And so last week, you're absolutely right. Reggie Bush last week, a lot of news on Reggie Bush. He's his birthday was on March the 2nd. So happy birthday to Reggie Bush. But also some good news for Trojan family. We have an evil man that has decided to retire. Actually, it's official now. A lot of you guys that followed the Reggie Bush case, Mark Emmert was the president of the NCAA that handed down the sanctions to USC. And it's going to be a blight to staying on his watch. The fact that he let this go down the way he did, the draconian sanctions that we were given, the fact that he took the man's trophy away from him. Reggie, anyone that watched Reggie Bush play realized that he's a guy that should be celebrated. He's definitely should be there in the Heisman house and people loving him and giving the attention that he deserves. But unfortunately, that was all stripped from him. We've seen a gradual move from the USC administration. Recently, they had a tweet before the Super Bowl where they talked about the fact that there's only a few people that have ever, I believe 3 people that have ever won the Heisman Trophy, the national championship, and a Super Bowl. And this was the first time I remember USC tweeting out about Reggie Bush and an affiliation with a Heisman Trophy on their official Twitter. So I think we're starting to see some momentum. I think we're starting to see a lot. Oh, also in the fact that Reggie Bush recently was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. So it's not just the USC family that's welcoming him back and acknowledging the great achievement of winning a Heisman Trophy. I think that this is something clear statement that it will probably be the fact that, you know what, hey, it's time to give the man his trophy back. Reggie deserves it. He's absolutely amazing. Charlie Parker, you're the new NCAA president. What a great way to start your watch by being the guy that fixes this wrong and gives what pretty much everyone, except for probably I'd say some Notre Dame fans, now some hateful Oklahoma fans possibly. Everyone else knows this man deserves his trophy, so it's time to give him back. What do you think? What do you think, Rick?
Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, Reggie should get his Heisman back. It wasn't going to happen under Mark Emmert. So happy birthday, Reggie Bush. Adios, Mark Emmert. The best thing he did was resign in his decade of destruction of the NCAA. The guy whimpered out. In the last 18 months, you heard hide nor hair in one of the most epic changes in college football history with NIL, the transfer portal, realignment, and basically it was a ship without a captain for the last 18 months. So nothing was going to happen when Mark Emmert was here. There was no way Reggie Bush was going to get his Heisman back, even though there was discussion, a lot of things happening right around the national championship game. Reggie was tweeting out. Charlie Baker, the new president, he's going to be exploring things with NIL, working with Congress, and creating more of an understanding to benefit the student athletes. It will come under his watch. It'll happen. Until then, hey, I think we said our piece. Give him his Heisman back.
Yeah, I'm also see my spelling error. Sorry. Correct. Yeah, he absolutely should have it, and I think it's a matter of time. So, Rick, let's say where we're hanging out. What numbers do you have for me?
Yeah, man. Let's start off the tailgate again. We talked about number 5. I've got a number in my head, 62. What do you think when you hear the number 62?
So 62. I would think right about the 62 national championship team. But I don't think that's where you're going. No.
Hey, you gotta relax, man. Just chill, breathe in for me. It's okay. It's okay.
Am I stressing you out?
Yes, you're stressing me out, man. It's okay.
So there's 62 would have been the national champions.
Yep.
I could probably think about maybe no, that's not long enough. It's not 62 days until the game. I'm not sure. What's 62?
It's been 62 days, almost. It's been 62 days since that debacle at the Cotton Bowl. That loss to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl will be basically 63 days from tomorrow. And so that's the last we remembered USC football. And it's taken me that long to actually get over that game. Seriously, no. We saw what we saw. And that's the beautiful thing about college football, man, is we took a lot of grief, and rightly so, because who in the heck gives up? Was it 16 points, 15 points? I think it was 16 points in like 4 minutes. So defense was non-existent. And we're going to go down as losing to Tulane. Congratulations to Tulane, but we move forward. So it's been 62 days since that ridiculous bowl game. No worries, man. So developing news this past week. Gary Patterson is stepping down from his analyst role at the University of Texas, his defensive analyst role from the University of Texas. And if you follow Matt Zemek on Trojan's Wire, he had a story. Lincoln Riley needs to give Gary Patterson a phone call. If you're not following Matt Zemek, I think you should. He does a weekly show with Mark Rogers on the Voice of College Football, the USC show on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern. And he's wondering if Gary Patterson should get a phone call from Lincoln Riley. I think Lincoln Riley probably already has given him a phone call, and maybe that's why he stepped down. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he could be looking. I don't. There are other possibilities. I don't really know too much about what Patterson's thinking. Could be anything from family to a bunch of things. Maybe looking for maybe NFL positions. I'm not sure. Maybe another analyst job, maybe a head coaching job, sort of down the line. But what I do know is that I think it would be a really awkward situation for Lincoln Riley to hire him as an analyst. It's almost like saying, because like Grinch obviously feels the heat going on right now, and you bring in a guy like Gary Patterson as an analyst, that's going to ratchet up that heat a lot. My concern would be you've given him this vote of confidence, and I agree. I think it'd be a great idea. I'm 100% on it. If you could get a guy, we saw what that Texas defense did against Alabama at the beginning of last year. So man, listen, if we can get a guy that can scheme like that to help out Grinch, questions are is how compatible is Grinch's system and schemes along with Gary Patterson's. There's a lot of things that are involved in what would come into it. But if it was just simply to help you to scout and to manage the defense, I think it'd be a great hire. My question would be though, if you're Alex Grinch, Rick, what message does that signal to you?
Well, if you're Lincoln Riley, you make this phone call. Whether or not Gary Patterson comes, that's a whole nother story. But you don't let potential hurt feelings by Alex Grinch stand in the way of making the phone call. Lincoln Riley brought Alex Grinch, okay? And he brought him here. And for one reason or another, the defense didn't execute at the level it is expected to, especially the last 3, 4, 5 games of the year. You take a look at USC schedules next year. First 6 games, very manageable. Last 6 games are going to be challenging. And that's not even counting a potential Pac-12 championship nor a college football playoff. And you're the head coach. The defense is the issue. We've seen championship teams at USC. It's all predicated on a solid defense, whether it's McKay, Robinson, Pete Carroll. Now, we know the offense is phenomenal, but the defense, we need if we can get another set of eyes like a Gary Patterson, basically to take a look at our personnel, take a look at the transfers coming in, practice film, what these guys excel in, what they need to develop in terms of their game, scouting the other teams, as you had mentioned, Tim, very critical. That's what these analyst positions are for. So somebody like a Gary Patterson, you have to consider bringing a guy like that in to improve your defense, because it's all about developing talent, depth, and anything you can do to improve your defense, which is basically step one. You do it. You don't worry about hurt feelings at all.
Yeah, no, I think it goes beyond hurt feelings. I'm with you. I mean, listen, Lincoln Riley is the CEO of this company, right? He's a guy. He's the captain of the ship. What he says goes. My concern is sometimes if you can bring some discord into a locker room. I'm not saying some of these guys are going to be Grinch guys, and then you might have a lot of just I'm worried about the synergy they have. I think that you're making a good point. Like we talked about the fact what he brings to the table. I'm not sure if it's a slam dunk as much as we would think. I think bringing Patterson in as a defensive coordinator, if he wanted to take that position next year, if let's say things don't work out with Grinch, I'm not calling for his job. I'm not saying that I think he's gonna fail. I will go into that a little bit later, but I do say that I see him coming in as a defensive coordinator. And again, I'm also assuming that these two don't know each other, right? I mean, the coaching community is a small world, so there's a really good chance these guys know each other. And hey, if they click, if they feel they could work together, it would be having someone of his talent would be again shown last year against that game. I keep going back to that Alabama game and how the for some reason I'm sure they schemed all offseason for them. They just didn't have an answer on Alabama, and we know that Alabama has the athletes. So I'd love to see what he could bring. I'm curious if what the benefits would be enough to take the risk of maybe upsetting the apple cart. Is my only point.
You're not going to upset the apple cart. Lincoln Riley, he's the CEO. it's no question, it's no mystery that the one thing he needs to improve about his team is the defense. And this is an opportunity to, again, he's not coming in as a defensive coordinator. He's not coming in to replace Alex Grinch. He's merely coming in as another set of eyes, an analyst in a program that needs a fresh set of eyes to take a look at the defense. It's not changing scheme. In fact, I believe during the offseason, Lincoln Riley had the assistants, the defensive assistants, a meeting, communicate with Alex Grinch the way they look at the defense. Everybody had their input about how to move things forward. This is just another step of trying to move forward and put forth the best defense possible out there in Caleb Williams last year. Simple.
Excellent. Yeah, so it'll be interesting how this thing shakes out. This is like a little unsubstantiated rumor. I think you all should go check out what Matt Zemek had to write. I dropped the link in the chat, so if you want to check that out, please feel free to give it a look. So moving on. So we know that on basically in football, there's three parts of football, right? So during this section, we really move towards away from like the rumor and the speculation into a situation where we begin to talk about the what's going on the field, actually the players, right? During the game time is about players. It's about the plays. It's about the Jimmies and Joes, right? The X's and O's. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we think is going to be going on, the storylines that'll be happening in spring ball. There's three parts of it. There's offense, there's defense, and special teams. I think we're going to focus on the offense and defense today. Special teams will have its own part later on down the road. But Rick, what do you think about the offense?
I think the offense is fine. Let's move on.
Yep, I agree. So basically, the defense is a real issue for this team. The offense is going to be easy. I totally agree with you. So Rick, what do you think about the defense?
Oh, where to start? I think that obviously the key with the defense is points per game. Any improvement we're going to make, it's going to be on the defense. The defense is about depth, providing depth and development. That is what's going to be key right now going into spring ball. What I'm most interested in watching, where they had off-season workouts. Everybody's working on their fitness. We've seen all the videos. Every team sees this every year, their fan base, just to get them stoked, keep them involved in moving through the off season. So really, it's kind of, I'm looking at the transfer players that we got. How are they going to improve the defense? The players that were injured last year, who can add to the potential depth. The returning players. I'm also looking at the injured players, and how are they going to replace some of the players that have moved on, like a Thule and like Nick Figueroa. How are they going to replace Mekhi Blackman? So I take a look at the program moving into right now, and this second year of recruiting and transfer portal activity. Definitely, you can see the upgrade in talent versus the first year when Lincoln Riley was hired, but it was all talk. There was no actual games to take a look at. There weren't any games that were played, but now you have a full season, 11-3. You have some history. You have an upgrade. Tell me, what do you think about? Let's start with.
Well, let's take a look at it. Right. Yeah. So let's take a look at it. Let's start with the key losses. So we know we lose Mekhi Blackman, shutdown corner, awesome for us last year. Tuli Pelotu led NCAA division or the Power 5 in tackles for loss and sacks. And then you've got Nick Figueroa, who was a role player, had his strengths and moments, but had his struggles as well. So on those losses, what do you think?
Well, the key thing is obviously those guys were critical, but where USC has to focus in on, and we've talked about this before, is the front seven. Luckily Thule was healthy all year. But you saw when we had some key injuries, with like a Eric Gentry and other key players, we just didn't have the depth. So the key here is developing the depth for next year, specifically the front seven. I like our secondary, a lot of guys in there, but in terms of who's going to provide the pass rush, that's going to be a committee. You just don't replace Tooley. So that's what I want to see is who's developing at rush end, who's developing on the line. Great. Where are we going to get the depth? What are the depth pieces? How are like a Jack Sullivan from Purdue gonna fit in with?
We'll get to him. We'll get to him, Rick. Let's go. So yeah, so there definitely be keys coming in, but those losses are going to be difficult to fill in. But we are looking to add to them. So one way that the Trojans have added to the roster, right, is through the transfer portal. So there's some key players impacting the starting lineup. There will be some storylines. Some of them may or may not start right away, but we can start off with Kyron Bars. He's the transfer from Arizona. He's a big guy. What do you got to say about Bars?
Well, Bars is he's got some reps. He's played at Arizona. He's familiar with the Pac-12. He's going to be a player that can step in right now and have the ability to start on the defensive line. And it's basically, and this is where SC is going to excel, where they've been excelling, is in the transfer portal. So he's a proven player who can step right in, have the opportunity. He saw a few players from other schools in the Pac-12 step in and be critical contributors to USC, specifically Mekhi Blackman from Colorado last year on the defensive side of the ball. He also saw players Gentry from ASU step in. So yeah, there's an opportunity for him to play on a defense that needs some help.
And so speaking of help on the defense, one of the big problems they had was with the pass rush. And if you look at the guys that are coming in all over from either, coming from the freshman class or from transfers, a lot of these guys, we have a lot of rush ends coming in. We got some big talented guys that are fast, quick, and look to get some pressure on that quarterback, maybe making the job in the secondary and on the back level a little bit easier for everybody. So how about Jamil Muhammad?
He's a transfer from Georgia State. I know that there's a lot of excitement about him and his ability to rush the quarterback. So it's an upgrade from, I believe, that the transfers that we were getting at that position last year. And mainly, we had a rush end, but unfortunately, Romello Height, the transfer from Auburn, hurt his shoulder, I believe.
Let's save him, Rick. Remember, next. He's next.
I understand that. I'm just getting into here's a guy who's going to compete at the rush end position, and where we were thin at that position last year, really didn't have much production at the rush end position. So I think that the coaching staff is looking at this guy as having an opportunity, and that's obviously why I think Jamil made the decision to come out to USC.
And we got a couple more rush end guys. We have Anthony Lucas and Jack Sullivan. Anthony Lucas is the big name we heard a lot about. He was originally a 5-star commit to Texas A&M, ran into a little bit of trouble there, and has found his way through a transfer portal. What are your thoughts on him, Lucas, the next season?
Well, I think the more guys that you have competing, the better you're going to become. And, Lucas has an opportunity here at USC. It's obviously the competition level is probably not as much as it is at Texas A&M, meaning that our defensive line, to have a successful defense, it starts obviously on the defensive line, and we just don't have the numbers. You look at the successful teams in the SEC, your Georgia, your LSUs, your Alabamas, they have 10 guys that they can rotate, and USC needs the depth, and that's what we just don't have. If you're going to be a successful defense, come time in late October, November, December, when it's championship time, you cannot be worn down. And USC was worn down last year defensively, and we saw it. You finished the season playing 4 ranked teams, and it showed. It was very difficult for USC to be successful. They played against, who was it? We finished the season with UCLA, Notre Dame, Utah in the Pac-12 championship, and then Tulane. So show me another team in the country that played 4 consecutive ranked teams, and those are teams that are ranked at the end of the season as well. So if USC is going to be competing for championships, and Caleb Williams last year, and that's what we do at USC, then you're going to have to develop and have depth. And so Anthony Lucas is part of that equation.
Yeah. And so it wasn't, depth is huge, right? You saw a lot of the injuries stack up. And remember, just because a guy's in the game does not, he's not playing hurt. So these injuries do stack up. If the guys are getting lots of reps and not get able to maybe rest those injuries they possibly could do, that does pay a toll towards the end of the season. And then again, there's the issue of having, the level of talent. There were a number of 3-star defensive linemen, and I am never one to speak ill of any Trojan, especially those who are going to spill blood on Howard Jones Field, and sweat and tears. So, but maybe the players we had in the past, I'm not the one to top this. It was actually Lincoln Riley saying that he thinks that last year's roster may be the worst that they ever have. So that said, maybe improving some of the talent as well as building that depth that you're talking about will be huge going forward. So then Sullivan is also the Purdue, I believe. He is a proven commodity. He was, I think he led the team in sacks. He's a big guy, also good against the run defense. Any words for Sullivan?
I think you got a graduate player. He's gonna again provide that depth. He's played in the Big Ten. Successful player. They made it into the Big Ten championship game last year against Michigan. So a proven player who can step right in and contribute. And one of the challenges we have when we're talking about front seven is that tackling display at the Cotton Bowl and a number of other games getting gashed because you don't have that push, you don't have pressure on the quarterback. And tell me about what you think of Mason Cobb, transfer middle linebacker.
Yeah. Good segue. I was going there next. Good segue with the poor tackling. So this guy's a tackling machine. He had upwards, I think, near 100 tackles last year. We need the guys. The trouble was we're talking about was in the second line with our linebackers. A lot of the issues had to do with the lack of getting pressure in the passing game, lack of pressure on the quarterback. But then when it came to running, it just seemed like the run fits were, we kept waiting for it. It got a little bit better. We thought that it was getting a little bit better, those run fits. But that one gap scheme that they were running, it just seemed like a lot of times, number one, they weren't setting the edge. The linebackers did not have that lateral movement to the sides that were make the plays. And I don't want to say anything negative about the guys leaving, but I think we're bringing in some proven tacklers. And one of them would be Mason Cobb. And I'm looking forward to seeing the competition for that Mike linebacker position or what direction they go for, go with that position. There's so many linebackers. That's going to be interesting coming out of this camp is who got, I know none of us can go to any of the, fans can't go. And I don't think even the press can watch the practices. So we're going to have to go off of guess what we're hearing. But I'm interested to see how, because they work it to where their linebackers start out in many positions and practice at many positions. I'm wondering where out of spring camp some of these guys are to go, and maybe some of the movements, the guys that are playing rush end, how many of them are going to stay at rush end? I think there was someone talking about the fact that at rush end, it looks like Corey Foreman might be moving from the rush end to the D line. So that might be, he's going to have a hand in the dirt. That's going to be interesting to look at for it as well. So moving on from, go ahead.
Definitely. And the one last critical transfer that we can talk about, not a front seven player, but he's stepping in to replace Mekhi Blackman, or has the opportunity to, and that's Christian Roland Wallace. He's a I believe 3 or 4 year starter with the University of Arizona, physical cornerback, and he's got the opportunity again to step right in and compete for a starting job.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's coming to the same fanfare that we had with Mekhi Blackman, but he's proven himself to be a solid tackler as well as a guy covered out there. I'm interested. Again, I'm hoping that we we get more pass. I don't think the issue was with our secondary as much. There were some issues in tackling, but as far as coverage, it seemed like they did well for most of the season. Anybody's going to get open. There's going to be holes in any defense if you give the quarterback too much time. So I'm happy with who we have there, which leads us into another group of guys that might have an impact. That'd be the guys that are the red shirting. Now we split this into two categories. The first category would have been the guys that are red shirting that because of medical reasons, right? It's the guys that were injured. So we're talking about guys like Zion Branch, Domani Jackson, as far as the secondary is concerned. I think with Zion Branch is great because we're finally to get some more athleticism on the back end. There's no knock against the guys that played safety last year, but having Zion Branch back there as an option is going to be huge. The guy, speaking of huge, he's a big guy. He's like 6'2", 205, 210. I don't know how big he is, but he's a big guy and athletic. And speaking of big and athletic, you got a corner in Domani Jackson who was hurt last year as well. Both these guys are going to come in. They're going to add size. They're going to add athleticism and speed to the position. Zion Branch, I think it was a top 50, top 60 recruit. And we know Domani Jackson was a 5-star, one of the top players in California, if not the top defender in California. So what do you think about those guys adding some depth and some competition to the secondary?
Yeah, no, I mean, you laid it out well, Tim. There's, we take a look at the transfers. We got 6 defensive players that we talked about that have transferred. And then you talk about the red shirts. Another one didn't red shirt, but he was hurt, was Romello Height. We talked about him, the rush end from Auburn. So we really didn't see Romello Height. So if you add Zion Branch, Domani Jackson, and Romello Height, there's 3 critical players that we didn't have last year. You add those to the transfers, that's 9 players that we're looking at. We're talking about that defensive depth. I really like what Zion Branch can bring. Again, I think he's like 6'2", 205, but he's a physical guy. I believe he was the number 1 or 2 player out of the state of Nevada last year. But him and his brother Zach, these guys, they definitely work out. They're physical. They're kids. They love football. So he's going to give us that physical presence in the secondary that we can use. He's an athletic guy. Domani Jackson, speed, great cover guy. He had a little bit of playing time last year, but coming off an ACL, critical time of the year, towards the end of the year, got some reps, but maybe wasn't really at his full potential. Now he's going to have another offseason to work out, learn the defense, a fall camp. He should be ready to go and past the injury situation. And we don't know with Romello Height. Again, he had a shoulder issue last year, but again, he is in the mix with the other rush ends and competing for playing time. Whether he's going to start or not, who knows? Hopefully he's healthy, but he's going to add to the mix and improve the room.
Yeah, those shoulder injuries are nasty. That's the one joint. It's really weird. And when you hear linemen with shoulder issues, that sometimes can be a lingering thing. I'm hoping whatever got taken care of and he can move forward and have a successful season this season. Moving on from Romello Height. Well, one thing also, you guys out there, if you're hearing that name Branch, we're talking about Zachariah and Zion Branch, and you're Raider fans, you guys might remember Cliff Branch because that I believe is their uncle.
I think it was an uncle.
So there's those 2 guys. Believe me, once you guys, if you haven't seen them yet, if you haven't seen their high school stuff, get ready for both these guys because they're playmakers and they're big time. Can't wait to talk about them. So then we have one more category when it comes to the red shirts, and that's the guys that maybe needed to bulk up, maybe needed that extra season, maybe just for whatever reason needed to get right in order to play, and that would be Garrison Madden and Devin Tompkins. Rick, we know that Garrison Madden, he's fast. He's a fast linebacker. I'm not sure. Is he from Texas? I think he's from Texas. But
he's from Georgia.
Georgia. He is a dude that has speed and speed for days. So this is, if you want to think about a really fast linebacker, this guy, and I'm curious to see, I don't know what his cover skills are, but he seems like he might be a little bit of an answer to some of the problems we have not being able to get out and on the perimeter and make those tackles. What do you think about? And then Devin Tompkins, he's a rush end, big guy, but didn't play much football in high school. He's like a basketball guy. I think he switched over to football. He's been bulking up. He came in a little bit light at 230, added about 30 pounds, and now I believe for spring they're listing him at 260. So, Rick, what do you think about these two guys and what they can add?
Yeah, starting out with Devin Tompkins. This guy is my under the radar player to watch out for next season. I think, as you had mentioned, Tim, he's a basketball player, primarily a basketball player, and out of Stockton, California. I saw pictures of this guy last year during the spring. He was getting yoked, and he's put on 30 pounds, so he's at 260. He's been in the program for a year. He's learning the defense. And now we'll see if he takes that jump and competes for some playing time at the rush end position. So really looking forward to Devin Tompkins. He's my under the radar guy that most Trojans maybe have heard about a little bit, but obviously he didn't play last year. But he's going to really compete for playing time with guys like Romello Height, Jamil Muhammad, Jack Sullivan. Again, this is a guy that can provide depth. And if you take a look at the other guy, Garrison Madden, yeah, a lot of lateral speed, quickness. And so I think they're really high. The coaching staff's really high on him because, again, they do put a value on speed and let's see what he can do at the second year of the program. So again, two additional pieces of the front seven that will be looking to provide some playing time and some depth to the Trojan defense.
Okay. Before we move on to the the fourth and final impact piece we wanted to talk about, I'm very sorry. I want to apologize to Matt Ritson. Sorry. Thank you for the super chat. You said this about a half hour ago. I'm sorry, I just missed it. I was going back to look. He says USC is helping Washington and Oregon bring to Big Ten. So I'm assuming that you're saying that USC is helping, that wants Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten. I have not heard that news. Rick, have you heard anything along that line?
No, I mean, what you hear out there is, let me tell you, Matt, thanks a lot for the super chat, but what you're hearing out there, nobody knows, because one day it could be, it's basically people's opinion on social media. Nobody knows. And if they tell you they know, they're lying. So is USC helping Washington and Oregon bring to the Big Ten? Are we helping them go to the Big Ten? Everything I've heard is no. But there's not a Big Ten commissioner right now. I know that they petitioned or put in their application back shortly after USC and UCLA declared that they were leaving for the Big Ten. But from what, the former Big Ten commissioner, Kevin Warren, basically said, yeah, thanks. We got your application, but we're not accepting it right now. So who knows? But I think SC and UCLA are just fine at the Big Ten with or without Washington and Oregon. I know Washington and Oregon would love to be there, but we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Right. Okay. And then, so moving on to our last thing for the night. This category is going to be your freshman impact. The guys that are going to impact on the freshmen that will make the biggest impact on the season. Generally, you're not really looking. If you are looking for freshmen to make an impact on your team, you're probably very disappointed. Obviously, they're coming in smaller. This is a grown man's strength kind of game. So usually, especially on the line, they're not ready to play right away. But speaking of grown men, there's one guy in particular in this group. I mean, I'll get to him in a moment. But he appears to be a man among boys, and that's Tackett Curtis from Manny, Louisiana. He's an inside linebacker, a tackling machine. He's drawn comparisons to a Brian Cushing, and so we had a theme here. Talk about front seven. We're talking about tackling, and we're talking about getting some size. I think that he checks all the boxes. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, there's you don't expect your freshman to play, especially on defense. A lot of times the size isn't there, and there needs to be development, especially when you're going from high school playing Power 5 schedule, and the teams that USC is going to be playing, and and looking to compete for championships. But Tackett Curtis is a different breed. This kid, from what I see and what I've read, is that this kid's dedicated to football. That's what it's about. I mean, it came down to I believe Ohio State, USC, and Georgia. So or was it LSU? It was LSU or Georgia. But this guy is a player. And yeah, you mentioned the Brian Cushing comparison. I also think of him as a Matt Grittigood. The guy's always around the ball. He's got a nose for the ball. So he's going to make his presence felt. He already is. The guy's, workout fiend. He's quick. He's fast. He's a hard hitter. He's definitely going to show that he's going to want to play, and he's going to eventually get on the field. So I don't know when that's going to be, game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what, but Tackett Curtis will be playing on Saturdays for USC, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they'll bring him along slowly, I'm sure, because again, we have guys like Cobb, and there's a lot of other players that are going to be fighting for that linebacker. But I do see a talent like him. When you talk about 6'2", he's 220, so he's a bit on the light side, right? He's more like a safety weight there, like a big safety. But I do hope to get him pretty soon. And if he can be, you just named guys like Grittigood, and I said Cushing. If he could be a fraction of either these guys were for USC, I think we'll be looking pretty good at Mike linebacker.
The only thing I'm concerned about with Tackett Curtis is that he's going to hit too hard. And with our Pac-12 refs, he's going to get dinged and potentially kicked out of games. So, he's from Louisiana, and I see that John DeLon's out there, our one of our friends from who's an LSU fan, so he knows what I'm talking about. John DeLon.
Oh.
John DeLon's in the chat. So, this kid is from SEC country, and they play football differently out there. At least that's what they tell me, and that's what I see. And our Pac-12 refs don't let us play. And I expect even tighter refereeing against USC and UCLA this year as our going away present. So we're going to be under a microscope. So the only people that can keep Tackett Curtis off the field are going to be the refs.
Yeah, and John DeLon actually brought up the point. He said that they finished LSU finished fourth. And you got to remember, there's a lot of times here, even in California, we think a guy from Southern California, he's coming to USC. Sometimes these kids just want to get out of where they are, so not necessarily the hometown. Sometimes the hometown school like LSU might have to do with the coaching or anything. It might have to do with the fact that he just wants to get out of Louisiana. So we're lucky to have him. And that's a great pull for the Trojans. And then you have Braylon Shelby, staying with our front seven kind of theme we have going. Braylon Shelby is a monster. He's going to be another guy who's going to be pushing for that rush end position. This guy's got athleticism for days. Rick, what do you got to say about Braylon Shelby?
Well, I love he's the rush end from Texas, and this is a guy who I don't know if he's necessarily going to get any playing time next year, but I like Braylon Shelby and the potential that he has. He's got size and speed, smart kid, loves football, and that's the type of kid that you want in your program. I think he's definitely going to be pushing the other players that are in the room. But I think that, again, he's going to provide depth. This is something that we really didn't have on the defensive side of the ball, recruiting-wise, when Lincoln Riley stepped in late November of, 2021, right? He had a few weeks. We had a small recruiting class, like 9 high school recruits, and then we had 20 transfer portal guys, but we didn't have the numbers defensively. I like this recruiting class better in terms of the defensive pieces, high school and transfer portal.
Yeah, so I mean, that was a cheater, me bringing him in there, because I correctly in chat, you guys, if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's actually an early graduate. I don't think he's going to be participating in spring ball, so that will also probably slow down his development. Yeah. So we probably will not see him early. I'm hoping maybe he will shine enough to get on the field late in the season. Okay, and then another freshman. This guy's kind of a freak. Well, not a freak, but he has the things you want. You can't teach height. Maliki Crawford, 6'4" corner. Right here from California. What do you think, Rick? What do you think about Maliki Crawford?
Well, yeah, you said it's 6'4". And what I like about it is this guy's got speed, athleticism, he's got length, and that's what they're looking for in the secondary. And I mean, 6'4", my God. So what that tells me is, guy's got a wingspan, and he's going to be perfect in the situation where we're looking to create turnovers, tipping that ball. How many times do we see balls get tipped? Specifically, Eric Gentry, tipping balls in the middle of the field, and I saw Max Williams was fortunate to get a few of those interceptions on tip balls. So I like what the future holds, and definitely Maliki Crawford's size and athleticism is a plus. So looking forward to seeing him develop.
Yeah. Okay, and then I think we want to move on a little bit quicker. I'll jam through this a little faster for you. So then you have a safety in Christian Pierce, David Peavy, Sam Green, Elijah Hughes. A lot of these guys again are D line. You got Pierce at safety, but do you see any of these guys that might be an impact? Let's say just early on the season or all the season.
Yeah, no, I just think these are development pieces. I like David Peavy out of San Diego. We won the recruiting battle against Oregon from Lincoln High School. They've got some good defensive players that have gone to Oregon, so getting David Peavy was a plus. Sam Green out of the DMV area. This kid's an undersized kind of like nose tackle, but boy, this guy's aggressive. He loves football. He wanted to be a Trojan, and he's kind of unheralded, but this guy is going to work. So that guy's another name to look forward to in the future. Again, young guy. Don't know if he's going to chances of him getting on the field. Who knows? But you know that he's going to be working. Elijah Hughes, another defensive line development piece, and Dejan Lafitte. Dejan Lafitte is a local kid out of Colony High School, Ontario, California. So you can. This is what I like to see. These guys are 3 stars, but a lot of times the 3 stars get developed. And hey, anybody that's being recruited by Sean New and brought to USC, I trust Sean New. I trust his coaching staff, and they've got the opportunity to start building the room. And that's what we talked about: defensive depth, building the room. Iron sharpens iron. And these guys know, hey, if they stand out in practice, there's going to be opportunities. I mean, there's opportunities on defense for days.
Yeah, for sure. And I like the fact you brought up the fact that we were able to get that recruiting battle with Peavy. Today, we're not going to go into NIL and how, and as far as the plan that the current coaching staff has for freshmen. We'll go into that a little bit later, but it was interesting to see, again, you might want to take a guy like Garrison Madden at 6'4", 6'5", 235, and as a loss. So right now we're saying that the big storyline was the fact that they lost out on Mateo Uyungale, right? And he went up to Oregon, but the situation might be, let's take a look at it in a couple of years and see where Shelby and Uyungale's careers are. You never know. I do believe that a lot of times the recruiting rankings are very accurate, but it's harder for me to say against my Bosco Braves, but it might be interesting to see, where these two guys end up. So everyone was melting down over Oregon winning these recruiting battles. Remember, everyone wanted Braylon Shelby, and USC was able to land him. So really quickly before we leave this topic, there's some needs that still need to be filled. I think that one I hear all the time is the fact that it still seems like we're a bit light on as far as defense. On the offense, we talk differently, but as far as defense is concerned, it looks like we're a little bit light still in the interior defensive line. They want to bulk up on that. Do you have any ideas or any position groups you think might need help?
Well, like I mentioned, it's in my mind, it's the front seven, and we specifically, viewers in the chat, thanks a lot for coming to our premiere episode for the off season. But everybody knows that the Trojan, hey, the offense is fine. Nothing needs to be fixed. So we're specifically talking to you about the defense today because we know what championship teams look like. And really it's the front seven. It's the, we've outlined it today. It's defensive line, it's linebackers and rush end. And right now there's opportunity at each of those positions. We had some guys that stood out, but at the same time, the the pass rush wasn't there consistently. You got to figure out a way, and this is what you do right now in spring: is how are you going to replace Tooley? Okay, and then there's guys that are returning from last year that Tyrone Taleni, he flashed. He had a key sack in the game against UCLA. Sure, Corey Foreman, he flashed. He had an interception. His biggest play, I think, maybe his only play of the year against UCLA, which pretty much sealed the deal. Thank you, DTR. But really, it's the front seven that has to develop, and that's hopefully what we're going to be seeing. And that's really all I'm going to be looking forward to this offseason is what is happening with the front seven. And what you're going to see too, Tim, is, and I want to get your perspective on this, is it's basically spring ball is show me what you guys have learned. Let me see how big you got in the offseason. How well are you adapting the playbook? How well are you playing in spring ball? How bad do you want it? And there's going to be guys that are going to transfer out after the spring game because that final portal window opens up May 1st to the 15th. How many portal guys do you think that we're going to get and what positions? If you had
to be as honest with you, I really haven't put a lot of thought of that. But one thing, it goes back to the Pete Carroll years. As far as what we didn't have last year is you don't have guys pushing the top guys at their position. When you had, it was always compete with Pete Carroll, right? If you go to a number of schools, you go to an Alabama or a Georgia, your job's never safe because you have young guys, you have transfers coming in, arguably gonna fight you for your position. So this year, having the ads we had, guys like we talked about with Branch and Jackson, Height coming back healthy. Overall, this spring camp, I think it's going to be huge competition at linebacker. There's going to be huge competition we were talking about at that rush end position. I'm looking forward to seeing, iron sharpens iron or whatever the phrase is, that you're looking at guys now that have been infused into the program. And it's not my words. It's Coach Riley's words that they had a roster that's most likely going to be the weakest roster they'll ever have in their tenure at USC. Well, this group that's going to come to challenge a lot of these guys is going to bring a lot of competition. And through that competition, some guys may leave. But if they leave, then that means that they just weren't winning a position. So that'll open up positions because, as I said, we're probably going to need to fill a couple more defensive interior line positions. And I'm not sure where we are. I think we're over the limit or at the limit right now on scholarship. So you can expect some people to leave and probably hopefully add a couple more down the road.
Yeah, I think you're going to see anywhere from 5 to 7 players that are going to leave after spring ball. I don't know which positions. This is just a feeling. You look at these players that are redshirt juniors, seniors that haven't got on the field. They might get their degree and say, call it a day. There was an example of offensive lineman, Jason Rodriguez. He made that decision probably like a month ago. And but there's going to be come a time after spring ball, and there's going to be an opportunity to get some more guys from the transfer portal to provide some more depth competition and stock up on I believe we might get another offensive lineman, a few more defensive linemen, and a linebacker. That's what I see.
All right. Well, listen, you guys, it's at that time of the show. We're going to probably go over some of your chats. Thank you guys. A lot of you were very active in the chat as well. I've also dropped the link if anyone wanted to call in. We're kind of over time now, but we got started late. So we'll be around for a few minutes. Anyone wants to call in, give us your thoughts on the USC program. Otherwise, Rick, let's just pump a couple of these comments out while we're waiting.
Sure.
So the first one here is from Ed Rogers, who seems very pessimistic. He says, will Utah curb stop us multiple times again this year? Can I start? I think without Rising, and I got to be honest with you, I was a big Rising fan until I saw that interview he had after the championship game. And my thoughts on him went down severely. I know they've got a young, very athletic, very fast quarterback behind him, but I think with the defensive players, the Jimmies and Joes that we're adding to the X's and O's, I think they're going to fit Grinch's scheme a little bit better. The first one we barely lost. The second one, which was definitely not a curb stopping, and if you want to talk curb stopping, it was like a 10-point game. It could have been a 3-point game if we hadn't thrown an interception. So ifs and buts or anything, I don't think that you guys have at Utah. You guys don't have the players to match up with USC, and I think our offense is score 100 on you guys this year. What do you think, Rick?
Tell me how you really think, Tim.
Oh, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, no, Ed, you know what? You'll be able to sleep at night. The game's in the Coliseum. I don't know if Rising is going to be back. Nobody really came out and said what his leg injury was, but it was a serious leg injury. Usually that could be an ACL. I don't know if it's an ACL. There's been discussion about that. But if it is an ACL, he's not going to be back by the time the season starts. No way, no how. And if he is, well, then he's got to go up against Florida and Baylor back to back. Good luck with that when your primary skill as a quarterback is running the ball. You go off platform and run the ball to set up the pass. And you're going to need to be fleet of foot, because we know what happened when the pressure got to Cam Rising down in the swamp. He threw the pick. Okay. So they're going to come to the Coliseum. I'm not really worried about Utah. If you're worried about Utah, then you should just stay at home, because we're going to take care of Utah. Not a problem.
Next question comes from Connor Johnson. Connor Johnson wants to know where Tony is. Tony is working right now. Tony's a very busy man, and he has other commitments, so he can't join us every week. But we miss Tony more than you do. So he's like, it's like the Three Musketeers without D'Artagnan or something, right? You're missing a piece of the puzzle. So we will hopefully have Tony come in when he has time. He's working on a number of things, but those commitments keep him from coming every week. Next one is, here we go. The biggest problem facing this team, the quandary the state of football is in. That's very vague. I think that the issues that are facing USC football, actually a lot of things that are hurting other programs are not hurting USC right now. We're not worried about conference expansion or our conference going away. We're aligned to the Big Ten, so that's out of the way. I think the way that USC is aligning themselves to finally getting some new NIL going, that I think there will be okay in the transfer portal. And then are there any other issues you could think of there, Rick?
LBC Rob, thanks for the question. Thanks for tuning in. I'm wondering if this is LBC, who people were confusing me with. And he said, hey, I'm going to have to change my name. And so this could be LBC Rob. This is the guy, if this is the guy on Matt Zemek and Mark Rogers show on Monday nights. But LBC Rob, thanks for your question. Welcome. No, it doesn't affect USC, the quandary of the state of college football right now. And a lot of that, LBC Rob, if I'm listening correctly, it probably has to do with the back and forth that's been happening for the past month between realignment with the Pac-12 and the Big 12. Okay, it's nauseating. It's the reason why USC got out of the Pac-10 or the Pac-12. We are fine. We are not in a quandary. Oregon, Washington, the rest of the Pac-10 is in a quandary if you listen to the Big 12 mouthpieces, such as who's that dude, Brett McMurphy. Or if you listen to Sikkim 365, or you listen to MacGyver, whatever his name is, MacGyver on Twitter. Yeah, that's the quandary. And the other quandary is, and you're starting to hear it from Florida State. Florida State's like, we can't really exist in the ACC because we're not going to be able to be financially solvent. And wow, they're lobbying for unequal revenue sharing. Well, yeah, that's why USC has left the Pac-12, is because when it became the Pac-12, we had to agree to equal revenue sharing. And look what happened. Pac-12 is what it is because we had poor leadership. We had a TV deal that never got distributed, and you add 10 years of that, and it's adios. So we didn't backstab the Pac-12. The Pac-12 screwed itself, and we are not in a quandary.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the person that said it. I watched so many shows. They're talking about the fact that USC was making more than Alabama before they went on their run with Nick Saban. Before this, they
Yep.
they changed the TV deal with USC in the Pac-12. USC was actually making more money on their TV deal than Alabama was because it had to do with, you know, you basically whatever you're bringing in is what you were getting, and USC was a hot name. So this new deal really did help the rest of the conference. Some of the smaller Pacific Northwest schools made out, making equal share to USC and the LA market. It was probably great for 10 years. It helped out your program, but at the end, I think it's probably what killed the conference. So another one with from LBC. Oh, sorry. We have a caller. Thank you. So Robbie Latham joining us. Welcome to the show.
Rick, Tim, what's up? And yes, Rick, it is the other LBC.
Hey, Rob. Hey, welcome, man. Thanks for calling in.
What are you talking about? What are you guys? Tim, again, pleasure. And Rick, I couldn't agree with you more. And I hate this Big Ten thing. I absolutely do, but I don't have a better idea, and I don't think we had much of a choice. It's the state. The whole thing is just, it reeks of okay, we're paying the players now, we can really exploit them. And I mean, like I said, you know, Nebraska chased that Big Ten money, and then they went from switching from the option to pro and this thing, and now they don't even really know who they are. Colorado was second in the Big 12 before they moved to the Pac-12. Now they're happy to have Dion use them, and they're thanking him. It's just it's sad, but I don't know. I don't have a better answer for it.
Well, hey, Rob, thanks for calling in. We appreciate you being on our first show here in the off season. Appreciate your support. Let me we'll go into this in more detail, and that's part of what the show is going to be about, because we've seen a lot of SC football, and we've studied a lot of SC football. And let me tell you, I am licking my chops that we are going to the Big Ten. You can go back and look when USC won championships. Take a look. We all know what Pete Carroll did. Okay. Pete Carroll won 7 BCS bowl games. He beat Michigan twice in the Rose Bowl. He beat Joe Penn State. What's that?
10-0 versus the Big Ten.
Yeah, 10-0 versus the Big Ten. If you look at John McKay and John Robinson, 40 wins, 7 losses, and 1 tie. That was from 1960 to 1982. Okay, USC owned the Big Ten. Okay, this is like the SEC doesn't like to go travel. USC was traveling in the 60s and 70s. Okay, imagine what like air travel was like back then. I mean, we were traveling 1,500 miles to go play these teams. Okay, it was like I'll share the data with you.
96, so I was a walk on, or I'm not. I don't. You guys can see who I really am. I don't want. That's why I changed to LBC Rob, so people can't see what a bad player I was. But I was the '96 Rose Bowl team. I was the Kyle Brad Otten split.
Okay.
I can give you the thing of how, if you remember, that team was ranked 7th before the Notre Dame game going into that year. Keyshawn's and thing we're going, and this is just the one thing Pete couldn't keep from happening once or twice a year. They tell it as how we're SC are so good, wherever, and Lou Holtz did that. Hey, we might be playing the best team in the nation, da 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 da, and we kind of start believing that, you know, something, we are that good, and then go happen. And it was cold there. J-Rob would not let us wear sleeves. That kind of threw us off at first, and then it snowballed from there. Kyle came in and tied it, but they went with Brad again at halftime, and that kind of split the team, which was more kind of a Kyle team in the first place. It just you know, and like I said, and the same thing with the both games at Oregon State and Pete's game. The most thing, it just every time I don't know what it's like I said, I grew up I played against Steve Sarkisian since 7th grade. I've known him thing. He still has it. When they tell him he's a good coach, he starts to feel it, and whatever, he starts thinking he's better. It's something. It's like the Southern California curse. I can't explain it.
No, I hear you, man. And even in Pete Carroll's tenure, you had the games that you lost. I mean, I don't want to revisit that, but how many times did we lose in Corvallis? A couple of key times, right? Where you win that game.
The same play as the UCLA, the 3-step drop booty. No,
right.
Well, let's not talk about it.
No, but hey, you know what? Every team has those games. And you know what? Sure. It's kind of, is your glass half empty or is it half full?
Listen, I'm a glass half. I'm from the Bob Knight, discipline, and I'm the glass is half effing gone kind of guy.
Okay.
I have a problem with I think defense has been devalued as a whole. The linebacker and defensive line, those are kind of the authoritarians of the team. That's just the way it is. That's the way teams are made up. And they're kind of losing that. And I know it might look, our quarterback, we ran option. Our quarterback got hit in practice. It's different now. But it was kind of I can't imagine. You imagine one of us told our thing to calm the F down. One of our coaches. I mean, it's not. And we've elevated that. Now we specialize this side of the ball, and now we kick you out if you hit them too hard. And it's just devalued the whole thing. And I think that's why you see our defense this year. I see more of the might as well go for the strip. That's the only chance we got, because if we tackle, I mean, you can't rush the passer 9 times in a row.
Well, hold on, wait, I gotta stop you there. That's what caused the debacle in Las Vegas. Is guys were trying to take too much on themselves, not just making a simple tackle and trying to strip the ball out. That game, I'm not saying we win that game with a hobbled Caleb Williams, but when we all know the plays. I'm not going to name the players. There was a massive play in the game. There was a long 3rd down. We could have stopped them, got them out on the punt. Somebody decides you're going to play hero ball and try to strip the ball, and the guy runs in for a touchdown. Or I can't remember.
It was like, here, let me try this, or I better just save my energy. It's like, what if it's like home run? Don't get this, or they score. At least we get off the field and save our energy. That's literally an acceptable way to play now. I mean, I just don't get it. And I just think as long as that's emphasized, like I said in the other comment, Georgia and Bama can't stop anybody now. No one can stop anybody. You can't. If you don't pay a price for running over the middle, coaches like Riley just drag and throw up to an open spot. They cannot outrun a receiver in a sprint to the opposite side of the field. It's how it's X to node now. And now I'm like, I think maybe Grinch is right, because maybe have Tui stand out there and get in the way, because at least they have to account for him, and it'll mess up their blocking scheme. And like I said, he can't rush the passer 9 times in a row anyway. So I hate it. I hate every bit of it, but at least that's forward thinking. And I don't, like I said, I have no reason why you need 2 receivers coach and no special teams coach. But this guy coached 4 Heisman winners. He knows more than I do. So just keep doing what you're doing, Bo. But it's just kind of foreign to me.
Well, listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you calling in, Rob. We have a couple more comments we got to get to. We've been here a little over an hour now. I apologize. I got the show a little bit late, but we're still over. Even though we started 15 minutes late, we're running over an hour for the show. So appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, man.
Right on, man. Hope to see you next week. Okay, a couple more calls and then we'll do it. Good point here. We have a Buckeye fan telling us that Bush deserves his assignment. Yeah, man, I don't think there's many people that argue with this. I mean, there might be some haters out there, but it's almost a slam dunk. He's going to be getting this thing back. Right, Rick?
Hey, you know what's going to happen. Mark Emmert's gone. It'll happen sometime next year during the season or before the season. That's my gut feel.
And then
anything, but that's my gut
I think
feel.
we were talking about Gary Patterson, Jim Leonard. That's all floating around. There's going to be a lot of speculation. We just, as fans, and I do it too, we need to see how this season plays out. We have no idea how this new group of guys is going to play under Grinch. There are going to be a lot of, I tell you what, if Grinch, for whatever reason, were not to work out the way that this administration has decided they want to play big boy football and go after, look at what they did as far as going to the Big Ten, hiring Lincoln Riley. I'm not worried anymore about hires. We do not have the mistakes that were made under Swan and Hayden going on. I think we could all take a deep breath and realize that we have adults running the show now. and that there is a need to move onto a different defense coordinator, which at this point there is not. That I'm sure that we'll be in good hands with Mike Bone making the decisions.
Yeah, and again, like look at Alabama. How many analysts do those guys hire? They want to get better. That's who they are. They are not going to leave any. Nick Saban is not going to leave any stone unturned. He is looking for every competitive advantage he can in the SEC, and in college football itself. Look at his record. Okay, if Gary Patterson, he leaves Texas, why wouldn't Lincoln Riley at least give him a call? You need to get better on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not advocating for him to come in and change the scheme. No, just give him a phone call, see if he'd be interested in providing his analysis. Again, being an analyst, helping out, scouting teams, scouting USC's talent, maybe giving his thoughts on potential portal players. I don't know, but getting better defensively. And he's the CEO. If Grinch has hurt feelings, you have a conversation with him. We're trying to get better on this side of the ball, and we're going to do everything in our power to do it because we're here to win championships. His words. That's Lincoln Riley's words, not mine. But that's the expectation at USC. And for the longest time, it hasn't been.
Yep. And let's hit these really quickly. John says it Kerr's a little light, but he hits like he's 235. That's that old saying, right? It's not the size of the dog of the fight, it's the size of the fight of the dog. One of the oldest cliches in the world. D-Rock, awesome. Thank you so much. Great Irish fan here. I like the current West Coast times for these shows. Can't be around when it starts at 11 p.m. on the East Coast. Yeah, that's the thought we had with it. We wanted to start a little bit earlier because we know we have Trojans and Irish fans like yourself that might be interested. So we wanted to make it convenient a little bit earlier for everybody else.
Hey, thanks, D-Rock Irish. We appreciate the comment. And yeah, we'll be here again next week at 5 o'clock. Hopefully at 5 and not 5:15. But hey, opening night, got some details to work out. And Tim, freaking awesome work, dude.
Yeah, and one more. Took Cushing 3 years. LFG, thank you. Took Cushing 3 years to lift and grow into his role. Let's be careful. I think this might be a troll. I'm not sure. But you got to remember one thing is Cushing got hurt. So you have to realize that the dude got hurt early on. I think it was a shoulder, actually. And that probably stunted his ability to get on and be 100%. But I'm not sure if this is a well-played troll or not. But yes, he did a lot of lifting in 3 years to grow into his role. Correct. I'm not touching that, Rick, and I hope you don't either.
Let's go to the next one.
Right. No, I think that's really it. Oh, well, one more here. Sorry.
Right.
From Guy or Guy. I think that defense will be a lot better this year. It's not that much. It's not that. Sorry. I know that's not saying much. Yeah, agreed. We all know there are problems. There were problems stemming back. You can't just walk into a room and you have to work with what you have. I think they've made some significant upgrades at all levels of the defense. I'm hoping that this will translate into better production, maybe getting that score per game down to the very low 20s. I don't think we need to have a top 20 defense to make a run at the playoffs. I mean, I don't mean we're going to win the playoffs, right? But I think we can make a run at, maybe even get into the playoffs with a top 50 defense, the way our offense is going to score. Thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely right. So top 50 defense, I think that is the key. I believe we gave up 29 points a game last year, but if you look at the last 4 games, we gave up 40 burgers 3 of those games. So if we get that number down to giving up 23, 24 points a game, we'll have a solid opportunity, a realistic opportunity to be sustainable and have a real shot at getting to the Pac-12 championship and qualifying for the playoff, albeit injury-free.
Yeah. So again, I want to thank you all for coming. It was a great show. There were some kinks that we're going to get out of this. We usually have our tech guru, which is Tony. We did not have him, but I had to shuffle and redo all the slides about 5 minutes before the show started. So we have that out of the way now. We know what format we need for the slides. And hopefully next week we can get this thing off smoother. Thank you all so much again for tuning in to Trojan Conquest Live. Again, this is the show you guys asked for. This is what you guys wanted in the off season. And we were able to ask Mark. Thank you, Mark, to give you guys a voice. Please tell all your friends. We want to grow the show. please leave a like and a comment if you could, and that would also help to grow the show. Any last thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, appreciate you being here. Like, subscribe, bring a few friends. We'll be here again next Sunday, 5 p.m. If there's any ideas that you would like to hear discussed or have questions about what's happening during spring ball, like Tim said, put them in the comments. We'll check that. And we look forward to producing a great show for you every week. Thanks for stopping by and fight on.
Bye to everyone.